Looking forward to this.
Yes, so am I.
There's the joys of technology right there.
Yeah, horrible sound, eh?
Don't know what happened there, but sure, hey, what's happening, Nicky Hamid?
Hey, that's right. We've all got the jitters.
Magic, 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 magic. Nicky joined me last month for a conversation that we called Humanity Rising, and we decided to come together again for part 2 of this. For Nicky to share something that's close to his heart at the moment, and that is healing ancient wounds through your present life story. So, without any more pause or technical difficulties, what does healing ancient wounds through your present life story mean to you?
Sit back and relax for the next 24 hours, and I'll tell you.
I'm very comfy. I'm ready to rock.
Right. No, yeah. Well, it's a long story, and we're all on this story, as it were. But I'm not sure whether we're going to be able to cover what's coming. But we'll have a go.
Yeah.
We'll have a go. Yeah, I really just to say that whenever I write, say on my Facebook, on my books, and whatever, and whenever I stand up and speak, it's like I'm standing on a high hill with all of us, the whole of humanity, because while we're living our individual lives, we are collective. We've come here to do a job together. Their planet is rising in its frequency, and all of humanity is, and we're doing this together. And so we're in our separate lives doing it together. And this is what I see all the time. The connectedness of what's going on around me in human lives, and the connectedness on the world scene, and the connectiveness when we talk one-to-one, that what we are doing is enacting or playing out the old drama to free ourselves. Through our lives, we're freeing everybody. And so every one of us came here with a purpose, a soul purpose. The soul knows. So as human, and these things I'm telling you, you all know. Just want to paint a picture. So we came here. We heard the call, the grand call. Earth needs you. What does it need? It needs your light. It needs the light of all of us, because we're going somewhere different. Humanity is going somewhere different. It's going where it has never been before. It has been through the darkness, and so that darkness has to rise. So the pressure of the ages is upon us all. But we don't have to worry about the big picture. It's through our lives, because it's been perfectly balanced. All the obstacles, all the challenges, all the hurt, the pain, the trauma, we chose a certain portion of it and a certain manifestation of those unkind lives humans have accepted about themselves. Because humans are beautiful, and you just need to look at yourself or a baby, and you know the purity and the innocence of what it's like coming straight from God. And all of us have. But we had to do our journey. We had to do the old journey in some form. And the only way to really do it is to really have it. So the only way to forget is to forget who we are, and then make our way back to this sovereignty, to this innocence of being, to this curiosity and joy of life. That is our purpose, to bring the light of our presence wherever we stand, wherever we go. And all of us have to do that, all of us in our own way, because each one is precious, unique, and different. And everyone is a piece of the grand jigsaw puzzle. The beauty of the human collective, of being human in 3D, and knowing what 3D is. And I know you all know this. Everyone who comes to my wall and anybody else's timeline in this, what we call the spiritual milieu, have chosen. They were woken up to the fact that I need to know more, because what is presented to me is not it. There's something wrong. This misalignment that I have experienced, and you had to experience it. And now it's time to let it all go. So let's start. There's a number of levels we can take this, but I'd like to take it, first of all, to COVID. Because for me, COVID is a beautiful example of how wise humanity is. It's set up an organic that is playing out in all of us at all the levels, physical, emotional, mental levels. It's playing out, each in a different way for each person. Because if you think about what is the basis of what people are experiencing with this world pattern? Because I'm saying it's organic, it's natural, it's what we created. We created it. It was a bat disease that was experimented in a lab, and they let it out by mistake, and people died, and they tried to cover it up or ignore it. And in the end, the Chinese had to deal with it, and it got out, right? It got out. But it wasn't just that. It popped up spontaneously in Italy. No contact. It's popped out spontaneously. This is a characteristic in New Zealand, in world history, like the 100th monkey. Remember that story where the monkeys on a particular island learned to what was it? Break open shellfish, and one monkey did it by accident, and others followed, and they repeated this accident until it became intentional. And then spontaneously on another island with no contact, the monkey started doing it. This is in humanity too. So there's this behavioral, or if you like, psychic contagion. And it flicks. And it only flicks because it's part of nature. It's organic. It's part. And as humans, it's organic. The organic choice of the collective is we've been suffering fear for a long time, and now it's time to face our fears, right? Or as a collective around the world in different ways, in different manifestations, and we've got to deal with it. We had to deal with it personally, and we had to deal with it as a collective. So we're now learning. We've been learning to deal with it personally. So it is in the decisions of, do I wear a mask or not? Do I get vaccinated or not? We have to work through that and make the choices. And some people, by their work situation, may be forced to take vaccine if they want their work. And oh, horror, shock of horrors, look what about the vaccine and all the rest of it. Has nothing to do with it. It has to do with your choice. All right, I'm choosing to take them because I want that work. I, as a sovereign being, doing it, knowing that there may be something wrong with the vaccine, I can handle it because of my connection. Overcoming fear. And everyone at some level or other is having to do this. This making sense? Yeah.
Yeah.
All of you know this. So blaming someone else for the vaccine, for the virus, we would have had it anyway because we have chosen to rise up. We have chosen as a whole to rise up. And you see the worst of human and the best of human starting to come up, emerge.
Yeah.
All right. So what's the worst of human? The worst of human, our human experience. Go to another level. So I'm assuming that you understand what I'm saying. Whether you agree with it or not doesn't matter. I don't care. But that it's organic. This was chosen. It's part of our plan that we chose as a collective. Let's deal with it. And the only way to deal with it for all of us is to have to face it, be faced with these things, these decisions. Do I choose my sovereignty and love, or my victimhood and fear? That's it. That's it. In whatever the decision is. So those of you who know better, who come here, should know better. Should stop going to this business of no mask, vaccine, no vaccine, do this or do that. You do what you choose, and you do what you choose because you know it's in your alignment. It's not about what's happening out there. It's not about all the manipulation. It's rising above the manipulation and taking our truth as sovereign beings. So I'd like to paint a picture about the dynamic of fear, the dynamic of not knowing. And you'll see it all playing out now. And America is a wonderful example. America always takes things to an extreme so that we can see, So those of you who are not American living in it might feel a little bit better. You've got your own crosses to bear, as it were, or challenges to. But it's much clearer in America of all the internal dynamics, all the systems control of what humanity thinks and feels. And we're moving to sovereignty, choosing our own, what I think and what we're mothers here in this moment, in this little place in New Zealand that seems to be an outpost. And I might even get time to mention New Zealand because it looks like it's ideal, but it ain't. As I say, dynamics are working, and the working out of complaint in New Zealand is high. We don't want anyone in because we don't want to disrupt the fact that we don't have deaths. And look how clever we are. in the whole thing of life, as little children and growing, we trade our freedom for the luxury of feeling superior, feeling better than someone else. You know, I'm a good boy, I'm a good girl, and getting praise and strokes. And that gives a sense of superiority when there's not the awareness. So we all come, and that the essential dynamic I'd like to point to is the fact that as a child, you might feel that something's wrong, but you can't voice it. You don't have the language and authority of what your approval and your comfort depends on obeying the rules. From a very early age, we learn to deny our own feeling of right. I mean, when you see a child, most children, and say they're bullied by someone, or another child, they're playing in this sandpit, and the child is spiteful or something like that. They come back in anger. They actually they go to their parent and are bemused at why someone would do that to them. It's not they're bad. There's no judgment. It's more about the feeling. You know, how could somebody do that? So there's no retribution, or we learn to be angry. We're angry when our truth is continually trodden upon. There are two responses to fear. One is cower in the corner, stop as small as you can, and hope that the bigger animal doesn't get you. Or you act fierce, you puff yourself up big and attack, and that is your means of defense. To make an opportunity to be able to escape. And so we have people who are the ones who cower in the corner, make themselves small, and those we might say low self-esteem, and those who attack, the narcissists, the arrogant ones, and those who like to use force of will, force of words, physical force. Now we all grow up in school and the workplace, and when you've been living to a good age, you have so often in your life, right from young, had to deny your truth in order to fit in, deny your truth in order to receive love, or just deny your truth in order to try and receive love. So even in the simplest decision, with years and years of this experience, you have denied your own truth. And this makes us ashamed, guilty, feel unworthy, self-doubt. Those comes from all those years of having denied our own truth. And we get to a stage in extreme at an adult age, and it happens much more if you've been working in institutions of any kind. You have this guilt and shame because you've been denying your truth in little things other people who in power have done, or the system requires you to do things which don't sit right, and you have to put those aside in order to manage yourself in those systems, denying your own truth. Now, all this is coming up, and it comes up through people's dreams, having negative dreams or repetitive negative dreams, or dreams that, you know, the dream where you have the same thing going over and over and over, and you have to wake up because you get so sick of it. And it might be something trivial, but it's just over and over and over in your mind. Or the ones where the fear, people wake up with sweating. And there are people, who've contacted me all the time. I've been on Facebook, but now it's much more frequent. And I have two examples that come to mind. They're both registered nurses in their 60s who are suffering greatly and say things like, I've done my spiritual work. Why does this keep coming up? The fear or the anger. Well, they have every right to be angry. How often they've watched people, others, say doctors, not just blaming doctors, but doctors giving them orders that they had to carry out as a nurse, and they don't think it's right, but they had to do it. They've seen some horrible things that happen in bodies, and the inhumane treatment of the patient for somebody's view of what's right to do. And this is a cumulative thing. So it's what Carl Jung calls de-individuation. When we work for institutions like the human systems, we become de-individuated. Lose our sense of our individual, the gift of innocence, the gift of joy, the gift of knowing what sits right and what doesn't, and the gift of trusting ourselves. And so that has to be dealt with, and it comes out as fear and horror in one's dreams, because we've denied our own truth. And every one of us has done this in some form or other, and now it's time to let it all go. But underneath that, there is the connection to our knowing that is soul knowing. And soul, in your Akashic record, you have the knowledge of the same thing happening. So many people who know and feel connected to Atlantis. We had a world that knew a great deal, and it used crystals a lot for the betterment of all. And it was a wonderful place to be. But the so-called spiritual people became arrogant and thought they could do it before God. And we saw what happened to Atlantis. And all of you who understand this will also have a memory of the fact that you were doing your best, your very best, and the civilization and the country sunk. Everyone was wiped out. Not everyone on the planet, but everyone was wiped out. And they've taken on the guilt and the shame of coming for the call and not doing it. It had to be, but we still carry that shame. So when you are dealing with your circumstances that have the same elements of this having to deny your truth in order to be part of the system, as it was Atlantis, it led to terrible things, and we've taken on that guilt and shame. It arises now because we're now having to see what we experience in microcosm, but within your heart and within your being, it's the same. And I want to say to everybody, you did nothing wrong. You have done nothing wrong. You're a beautiful, beautiful human. And you had to do this. You came, and bless you. I honor you all for coming. You were never condemned. We have never, ever been condemned. We have been loved. So stop condemning yourself. And if you're angry, you are angry for a very good reason. You have had your truth trampled on for lifetimes and lifetimes. You allowed it to because you had to know. But now you know. So don't be fooled by the circumstances around you. Don't be fooled by the playing out of COVID, which is a divine playing out. It's our decision to have it all out. We just need to make that choice. That choice. Love over fear. To forgive ourselves, yes, but you do not have to ask for forgiveness because you were never, ever, ever condemned. And you're not being condemned now. There's nothing wrong. COVID is perfectly here for a time, for a short time. It's here for us to take our calling above all else and not get caught up in mask or no mask and all the arguments for or against. It doesn't matter. You are a divine being. You have the power. And we're building a new world, which means we let go of fear, precious souls. And I'd like to say, any questions coming up, anything? Yeah.
No, I think everybody's as engrossed in what you're talking about here as I am. I'm like a sponge.
Yeah.
I love what you're talking to, Nicky, and I love that you have chosen to tackle the topic of fear under the umbrella of COVID. It's the most perfect thing that you could have chosen to encompass everything in. If I can just go back for a minute or two, just to make sure that I'm following you all the way through here. What I heard you say was COVID is like I said a minute ago, the umbrella that's highlighting the places where we have been asleep to the divinity within us, where we have chosen to forget who we are and what we came here to do, that we are love in skin, in human form, having experience after experience after experience, that from an early age we have been been conditioned, we have been programmed, we have hardwired ourselves to believe that we are less than who and what we truly are. That under the umbrella of COVID, for example, and many other things, we are getting to see any areas in our lives now highlighted very very massively, like amplified, that where something needs to give, where we do actually in fact need to step up and show up for ourselves. The quickest way to lose yourself back into the illusion and the story is to buy into the content of it, as opposed to deep dive and access the ancient, absolutely ancient wisdom that we have dormant within us. That knowing that we are love and we are loved and we are supported 24/7 throughout every single thing that we experience. If we would just get the heck out of our own ways and allow that space to tap into what it is that we individually have been trying to show ourselves experientially, as in via our own life experiences, areas where our sovereignty has been compromised, areas where we have not chosen to love ourselves, areas where we have said yes to something outside of ourselves and no to ourselves, and in turn dishonoring ourselves and our journey. And that if anything in a massive way, shape, or form is going down in somebody's world right now, it is you showing you the gap, the space, the opportunity to rise up again. That we have two very, very powerful things running side by side, and a choice point moment by moment which to feed. You're talking about feeding the wolf of fear or love. That we have the learned conditioning of our programming that was never love, or we have this ancient knowing that we are love, and moment by moment the choice to engage in one or the other.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well said, darling. Well said. You would take time if you'd said it.
You know, it's so big for everybody right now, Nicky. It really is. I mean, there are people across the planet who are completely losing their shit at this stage. We're a year into this picture, you know, and I think people are finding it really difficult because they're being asked time and time again to face themselves, and a lot of people really don't know how to do that and don't know how to sustain. They don't have the energy. They're weary, they're tired. They know that they know that it's time to step up, but a lot of people don't have the bandwidth for it sometimes. Some days we're flying high, like you said. Some days we're falling low, and in the space in between it's a bit like this.
Yeah.
What would you say to people who are, like, you're talking about the nurses there, for example? So just if I could go back into that example that you gave a second ago, in an environment like that, it's not about the doctor or the nurse. My understanding of what you're talking about was it's the energy, the underlying thing of for so long. What we have experienced is the conflict, the inner conflict, where we have suppressed our voices, suppressed our feelings, suppressed our emotions, because we traded those things. We traded our authenticity for acceptance. And we're now in a society where I think this situation has pushed everybody to the max, so that they will really tap into themselves, tap into how they feel, with no more limitations, and say, no, this isn't okay, this isn't good enough, this ends now, or choose to stay in it.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think the answer is sharing. I think the answer is sharing, not just sharing ourselves, but sharing with each other, because we remind each other. But it's just power in the simple things. In the simple things. Let me give you an example. Yesterday I went to a funeral, family funeral, and people coming from all around the country. And I come from a long line of big families, 6 or more. So there's plenty of people, and there are even brothers and sisters I hadn't seen for 30 years, but there are nieces and nephews and their children and so on, and they all came, and the spouses, and a lot of them I didn't recognize until they came up to me and said who they were. But the thing was, for me, I noticed there was all sorts of family dynamics going on. But when I met somebody and I gave them a hug, particularly people, who closer, which I hadn't seen for ages, nieces and nephews and so on, I hadn't seen at all. And just whisper in the ear, I love you, as I gave them a real, genuine hug. They just melted.
Mm.
They just melted. There wasn't much words. They may have said words. I had not one rejection. Not one rejection. And I know that touch, that presence, which they have, that touch is their presence coming out, goes with them. Goes with them. So it's in the simple things, it's not looking for the big task. Some of you will want to go out. There's a lot of people in this world now who are gradually starting community things, little community things, or bigger community things that will lead to it. And I know that the support will come. but not through saying this is what I'm going to do, but it's by doing something. And it's little. I suggest for people, even if it's 2 or 3, if you can have them in your home and do a meditation together and just speak about anything. And you're not a teacher, you're just sharing. You become a teacher if you have a bit more knowledge. But it's not, it's just about being together in harmony, just like we would in the tribal times, be together, and there's acceptance of unity. That sort of thing. That's the stepping out. The stepping out is not big noting. The stepping out, not informing people what COVID's about and how they're enslaved. No, it's about the human kindness, the touch of human kindness. And everyone here can do that. Everyone here can do that. And if you can't do it physically, you can do it where you sit. You can connect to humanity because there's a world wide web of love, and it's growing and growing and growing. And every time you, with intention, just want to share your joy, you can share it and give it to that world wide web. And we have a grand, grand, grand company of heaven who, if you are willing and offer it, they will take it to where it's needed, because we're not alone. We're not alone in this. It's huge. We're now consciously taking our own sovereignty and acknowledging our presence and being willing to take that first for ourselves. And that's the choice of, I'm no longer a victim. I'm no longer a victim. I'm a child of God. And I love.
Can I ask a quick question?
Yeah.
To people who fall into, through no fault of their own, victim consciousness, because, well, we've all kind of swam there for quite some time, haven't we? So when we drop back into victim consciousness, can I ask, what do people need to do to change the vibration, change the feelings from within?
If they
You talked a couple of minutes. I was going to say, you talked a couple of minutes ago, for example, about anger, anger and frustration, and it's quite prevalent, at the moment, through a lot of us. To people who through, like I said, their life circumstances where they boomerang back around, they're on the upward slope 1 minute and then they kind of, they face plant back into the stories. Is there anything that you could share that might help somebody who really feels in the depths of these things and they don't understand them? And I was wondering if you could also possibly, I know this is kind of 2 questions at once, but the reason I ask this question is because the theme of what you wanted to speak of was ancient wounds. And I know that there's been sometimes, there's myself personally, people in my circle have been experiencing waves of indescribable emotion, anger, frustration, whatever it might look like, and not even have a reason for this, but it's there and they feel it and they know it and they feel the discord within themselves. Is there anything you could share to people if or when they're hit with waves of this?
Well, when anger's high, I mean, well, we've got a lot of fear of anger, because when you're angry, you feel your power, and for a lot of people, that's a lot to handle, how powerful you can be. So, but I would say, find a private space where you cannot be heard or seen and have it out. Have it out. Speak it out, even if you don't know what it's at. Just what you feel, speak it out. Take something that is going to make you feel better and smash it. If you have to use something physical to act it out, but you're more than acting it out, you're feeling it out. and things might come up, and it might be somebody you love or somebody you haven't loved, and you have to say, swear and curse. But do it fully, and then let go of it, because it's
Give
not
yourself
about
permission to do
yeah,
it.
to do
One
it.
of the
Do it.
audience has just, Wayne Mallet has just wrote, I'm sorry, I have to catch this now because it will go and then I won't have the attention span either. And it says, can we understand the need for liberation without feeling like a victim? So where we perpetuate our own cycles, can we understand the need for liberation without feeling like a victim?
No, I think in the beginning you can't. You wouldn't have the decision to, I need liberation, if you don't feel victim. So
Mm.
yeah, you have to feel victim. You have to feel victim, and you is making a decision that I'm not going to be the victim anymore, but also to understand what the feelings are and what does it to you, right? What does it to you? But it's going to require your soft nature. It's going to require your soft nature. So while you're feeling victim, it's hard to be in soft nature until you get practiced at it. But to be with it is the first thing. Like, to be with your anger is the first thing. To be with a feeling of victim. And if you just be with it, you'll begin to understand why. You'll even get indications why. And even if you don't get indication straight away, it will be shown to you in something somebody does, or a book we read, or whatever. The idea is to build a dynamic in your life. And then when I say a dynamic, a daily dynamic of choosing, because we're not used to choosing this sovereignty.
Yeah.
And so we need to build a dynamic. This is why we have practice. This is why we have tools. And it doesn't matter what the tool is. If it works, it works. Until it doesn't, and you choose some other exercise. But it is daily choice of, this is the time I sit with myself. And if I haven't got anything particular to handle, I just go into that peace. Because you will be shown, your soul will show you what you need. You don't have to go looking for it, but it's to be present. You see, how do you help someone else? You really help someone else by sitting beside them in peace and equanimity, in love and compassion, and be with them.
Yeah.
You don't even have to say anything, or you may say a little. An arm around the shoulder. And with that, in that presence, a person get to know that they are seen. Without saying anything, they will get to know, because their soul is getting them to rise. So we don't have to make them, we don't have to set it up for them. It's quick. And it might be in the conversation in the mall, me with a man the other day, and just talking about the weather and the conditions, that I can see the pain in his eyes. And he started talking about some particular thing. And I was able to share with him something that was relevant to him. And he said, oh, thank you. This makes so much sense. And countenance changed because there's an open door. So we are the open door.
Yeah.
Our door to help us. Again, I'm talking about good stuff, but the Chinese have this saying, I've used it often. The best way to avoid evil is to make energetic progress in the good. So when you're not in, that's when you think everything's right and you let it cruise. That's the time when you choose your dynamic, and make sure you do that dynamic frequency, because these circuits are a little bit slow to realize and they need repetition. So the connection between heart and mind is made, and it needs that recognition. And you also need the feedback that the power of your love and your loving kindness touches, and people are ready for it. My next door neighbor knows nothing about spirituality, is ready for it. And so we sit over there and talk about the neighbor, something has happened in the neighborhood, because that's what's interested in. But we can quickly turn it. It quickly turns to him feeling good about himself, or seeing something else of value, which he does, which he didn't see before.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then we become more able to deal with the rough stuff in ourselves. I have fear. What am I afraid of? I'm afraid of being evaluated by others. But I know that what other people think of me is none of my business. Okay. So I'm afraid of other people. Well, I haven't got confidence. So how do I build confidence? I take the next step that I wanted to do. I might write the first chapter of the book I've always wanted to write, or whatever. It doesn't matter. Or go and do that I've always wanted to do. So I've opened the door, and it's a habit of opening the door, and we get quicker and quicker at it. Because anger, I always say that whatever is your weakness is usually a strength that's overdone.
Mm.
And anger is the result of having your truth trampled on, and you suppressing your truth because you doubted yourself. So if I'm experiencing anger, I have to take my own power. The power isn't over the world or over, the power is in my life. That's what empowers us. And thus the anger really does recede. We can still say, no, no way. But now it's truth, the power of truth, rather than the power of victimhood, which anger is, isn't it?
Can I ask another question? In your opinion, where does compassion come into play when navigating this space that you're describing? This space of giving yourself the freedom to express, to speak, to feel, to be, while not defaulting to victim, while not hitting the self-sabotage button, while learning, like trying to walk again, feeling a bit like Bambi on ice. Where, in your opinion, does compassion or self-compassion, compassion for others, compassion for the self come into play when we're trying to navigate this space, in your opinion?
Well, when you're navigating that space, it's quite difficult. You know, compassion has to be a state that you know.
Mm.
And part of this is like a hollow bamboo, like a hollow bamboo. You see, it's a space where you can be. You have nothing particular to say or do. What the other does will maybe determine what you do next. But you're like a hollow bamboo with love pouring into it, right? That's compassion. And everybody knows it. Everybody knows it. It's not something we can grab. Compassion is the action of unconditional love. And you know, humans, I say this to all humans, that one of the reasons that we are so loved and admired by our company of heaven and all the star beings and so on is because human beings have been in a situation where they're learning love, compassion from every direction and from every walk of life and every kind of experience. And when we're complete and we're in the new world, sharing and creating, and being together, the universe will want to know what we have, because we will have compassion on a vast, vast scale, because we've experienced it in so many different ways. How amazing is that? This is where we're going. This is where we're going. This is what we're doing now, is to know compassion. Compassion even for those who have been on the opposite side of victim, who are victimized. The children of God, they're all babies once, and they're playing their part. And that's not to say we don't do something about changing how we express things as human, but we won't do it by fighting a system.
No.
We do it by bringing something else, something new. This is the shift. And choosing in our circumstances to choose love first. It requires a dynamic of building it in your daily life consciously and frequently until it becomes an obsession, if you like. Because when I got nothing to do, just to sit in peace, and might call it meditation or whatever, it's the most beautiful thing I could do. It's not a refuge to go to. It's a place I wish to be from in all I do. But also, when I'm feeling something that's, if we say negative, anger or frustration or whatever, I have to be present with it. I have to be present with it. But now it's so quick that it doesn't get attached to anything for very long. And when it does, it's a gift. Please show me the next thing I need to know. Wow. Because I get the wow sooner. We get quicker and quicker at it. But with others, it's just being present, because that's what they'll get. Which, like a trust. I know that when I look at what's happening and I see that people are still caught in the play that other people are controlling, there's still so much human kindness being meted out from person to person in the neighborhood. People are more aware of the value of others, their need to express support to each other, even if it's within a restricted frame of understanding. There's innocence. There's lots and lots of innocence going on, innocence of being, and a revaluing of that. That's what I see. You know, all the things in the media and so on, yeah, they're there. But spiritual, you spiritual people, a lot of them, I am amazed how easily you get caught up in these little decisions of, well, like the mask one is a beauty. Is a beauty. You know, you'll make a decision in private, you don't have to follow it at all. I mean, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Who's the master? Who's the master?
Can I just say, or bring you back to one thing there that you said? Yeah. So what I heard you say, when we're in the everyday situations, for whatever is unfolding moment by moment, you know, a busy person's day, what I heard you say is to remember the choice you have in that present moment, how to react or respond, to tune into how you are feeling within your physical body, and respond or react accordingly.
Yeah. Except, Melissa, it's just like when we say that, it's like we're making rules.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, very much so, because when you're in the middle of it and somebody,
that's.
triggers you, or
I think it's better for me. It's better to allow it to be. Allow
yeah,
yourself to make mistakes if it's you're going to miss
that was
out.
the other thing.
Yeah, just being quicker at picking yourself up on it and not judging yourself on it. Aha, Nicky.
Yeah,
There you
that was the
go.
other thing I wanted to ask, is because um what I've experienced, and I know a number of people around me are experiencing, is the capacity to change their mind so quickly. What they
Yeah,
had resonance with today isn't what they had resonance with 5 minutes ago, yesterday, 5 years ago. And then the mental battle that ensues when we try to, uh, when we bring the mind in basically into it,
yeah,
compartmentalize, rationalize, do any of that thing that literally just pulls us more and more from our heart and back into our heads. Um, in the space as things unfold, then is it fair to say, or can you even give your thoughts on allowing ourselves off the hook from
yeah,
ourselves?
yeah. Yeah, well, I remember a student coming to me years ago. It's the one that stuck as an example of that. We were talking about, we were studying Indian philosophy, and it was about attachment. And he came to me one day and said, "I think the important thing is not to be attached, because if you're attached, that's it. You've got to be detached." So I said, "So you're attached to non-attachment."
Oh, bless. Wow.
So for me, it's like it doesn't matter if
Mm,
you trust yourself and you're prepared to be aware
mm,
and conscious of it. In the beginning, you might be quite late in catching yourself and dealing with it, but you will if you choose. In another time, that made me so angry, and you feel the anger, so you deal with your anger there, and don't judge yourself for not doing it then. We
mm.
get quicker and quicker because we've got to relearn what we knew when we were children. You get the aha immediately, and it's natural. That is natural within us. So we have to allow ourselves to do it. But it's requiring is your free will choice. It's like, I'm prepared to do this. I'm prepared to see anything. I'm prepared to feel victim. I understand it, because as I understand it, I free myself from it. Because knowledge is freedom. Knowledge is freedom. If you're afraid, find out what you're afraid of, and know it, and the fear goes.
Yeah, it's very
Yeah,
powerful.
yeah,
Listen to what you said there. Even the words, I'm open to getting this wrong.
yeah, yeah,
How
yeah. Well,
liberating is that even?
no, 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 no.
Okay, okay,
Because
okay.
because
No, but I
if
mean
you,
to even acknowledge it within myself,
yeah,
that
yeah,
I would, the need to want to get something right, for example, and then even, I'm not saying that I want to repeatedly get things right. I'm just saying, even even giving myself permission for something to unfold in a manner in which I didn't want it to, hoped it wouldn't. It allows constantly for my growth and my expansion. Um,
we can do it there. We can do it this way. I'm just open to knowing. I'm
yeah,
just
yeah,
open
yeah.
to knowing, because then it's not right or wrong. Because sometimes things feel right, as you
Mm,
said before, one moment, and the next moment it wasn't correct.
yeah,
Like, I can be counseling someone, and I get to the stage where I'm repeating myself, and it's a waste of time. And I say, listen, this is a waste of time. Don't waste your time or mine.
yeah,
Go away. Go away. Now they've gone. My ideals of a spiritual person, that doesn't sound very nice, you know. Oh, good grief, what have I done? What are you doing, Nicky? But you sense the rightness of it, and
mm,
you allow that. but you're also open to if it was wrong. Okay?
Yes.
It doesn't matter which way, you're open to that.
Yeah.
And I find when I trust that, the person always has got what they needed. Not big noting myself, because I was responding to them.
Yeah.
I was responding, and it wasn't about me at all.
Yeah.
Because when I'm sitting beside someone, it's us.
Mm.
Just as my father always used to have this father-son kind of talk. And the very last time before he passed over some months later, and I couldn't be there, we were talking, and he was doing the father-son thing, and then it got to a stop, and I just stayed there present because I love being with him. And he was silent, and for my father to be silent, that's something. And we sat there in silence, and there was two beings at one. And I know it's like if there wasn't any peace between us, the peace was there. There was nothing more to say. There was nothing more to say. It was just the presence of being together. And this is what, I mean, like now, there's just silence, stillness. When we're together in truth, and as we gather more and more in this future that's coming, there's going to be a lot of us sitting in silence in community. Wow. Wow. And then there'll be chatter, chatter, chatter. And it's all part of us. It's all part of us. So we do have to allow the human side of us, because children will play absorbed in the sandpit, but together they're chatter, chatter, chatter. They spend more time working out what the game's going to be about, the pretending, than they do actually playing. But they're totally absorbed. It's fascinating to watch. It's so beautiful to watch. And human beings are so beautiful to watch. Even when they get caught in an argument and then they eventually come to the conclusion, that we can beg to differ. It's beautiful. It's beautiful to watch. So there's only one absolute. There are no absolutes.
Boom. Boom. Right there. Well, Nicky, I'm mindful of the time we're after being together here for a beautiful hour. Is there anything in particular that you'd like to finish up with, or?
Yeah, I did want to say something about this de-individuation a bit more, just to finish the picture, because what we see in the movement, this is in terms of mass movement, people talking about the cabal and all this sort of thing, and there is been a plan, a dark plan, as it were, and it is in operation, and it has been for a long time, and it was absolutely necessary for us to fall as far as we have done. But this turning a blind eye is one thing we have. Human beings have got themselves in the mire from pretending that things are not happening when they are. So there's a bit of that too. There's a bit of knowing, because as I said before, I taught as a psychologist. My main branch of psychology was social psychology. That is the influence of the group or the mass on individuals. And I said, I think it's a key is people, by their insecurities, trade their freedom for the luxury of feeling superior or safe. And this is what we do. And so we do not need to, but I think sometimes we have to say what we see. And I have spoken about human trafficking and people think, were quite shocked that I said so. I wrote a posting about that. But it's something that's happened and is still happening. And for me, it's a no. In no way. I could easily rise up in my wrath, not anger, wrath, because any innocent. So we need to keep that. Not hold on to it, but keep it. And when we have to, we say, no, not on my watch.
Yeah.
That's
so call it.
That's our boundaries. Just because we're spiritual, we don't say no. Just because we're spiritual, we don't say, well, for me, that's bullshit or whatever. We have to speak our truth. That's stepping out. But it's not going, as a bull at the gate and trying to change other people's point of view. It's saying, this is where I stand. I must my stand, because the German people who lived near the camps allowed those deaths to go because they turned away, because it's too horrible to think of. So you can't blame them, because people are turning away from what's happening because it's horrible. So I'm saying, don't get involved in it, but understand that there's a playing out here. Then when you choose your open door, you choose it for all reasons, not just the ones that are pretty and sound good, because there is darkness playing out too. So that's what
can I just clarify just on what you said, that if something outside of us sparks something enough inside of us, personally, that it's okay to well, it's not that it's okay. It's, in fact, what I heard you say is it's imperative to call it.
Exactly. It's taking your power. Yeah. It's taking your power. It's not a power against anyone. It's your power within your power of truth.
And that moves. That might be to speak one day, to be silent the next, but to honor yourself. Tiny example I used yesterday. I went into one of the stores in the town next over. Everywhere I go in Ireland at the moment, we have to wear masks. They're mandatory. And I had just come out from doing grocery shopping. Every single time, I'm someone who's dealt with anxiety for many years. Shopping is something simple that completely it really overwhelms me. So I came out of the grocery store and I had to make one more stop. And in that moment, I decided I'm not wearing the mask. I'll take what comes as it comes. When I walk into the next store, I had to buy 2 bulbs. That was it. I had the mask in my pocket in case I was met with any confrontation. But in this particular scenario, I said, I'm going in here and I'm not wearing my mask. And I went through the store, I paid for my goods, I came out, I was met with absolutely zero resistance. I just simply honored myself. In my head, I had this little story. I'm like, if anybody says anything to me, I'm going to tell them I have this phenomenal, what way did I say it? Condition called CS. And if anyone asks me, it's just simply common sense. And then out the door. But that was it. I went in, I was met with no resistance, because in that situation, I was just simply honoring myself. I wasn't trying to be an asshole. I wasn't trying to be confrontational. I wasn't trying to get bounced out of the store. My body needed no mask. And I was in and out. So to tap back into what you said, call it if you need to. Let it be at peace if you don't. But at all costs, honor the self.
Yeah, and else. There is a magic. There is a magic so often when you make your decision in truth, not against anything, but for your alignment. Nobody sees it. No, there's no opposition, because this is the switching of timelines, right? This is a switch. You're in a different timeline. and this will often happen. But if it doesn't, if you are confronted, you just understand that you will deal with it. And you won't fight
Yeah.
and scream and shout. You just deal with it. And if
Yeah.
you have to make a move against what you choose, then you make it calmly because you know where you belong. You
Yeah.
know where you belong. You know that there's a great plan. It's unfolding, and you're part of it. You have the company of heaven beside you, and thousands of other humans who are doing the same. Wow!
Yeah.
Wow!
I love it. Well, listen, Nicky, we're going to have to leave it there because Todd Medina is going to be hot on my heels here at 9 p.m. But it was an absolute pleasure as usual. Perhaps you might consider coming back for part 3 next
Yeah.
month.
Yeah. Well, I've got a book I'm writing. Well, it's collecting postings together at last, and I'm calling it Humanity Rising.
Oh, epic. Now I didn't
And
even know that, you see.
and a second book that will follow it's going to be called Beautiful Human.
Awesome. And a
Right.
beautiful human is exactly what you are. I really
What we
appreciate you joining me here tonight
okay.
and
Thank
in the future in New Zealand. And thank you to everybody who joined us here live and in the comments and on a replay. Until next time, thank you so much.
you.
I love you.
I love you too.